Hello, my name is Camila Pontes. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and I'm going to present our work called Causal Relationships Between Human Mobility and the Spread of COVID-19 in Spain. The main objective of this work is to unravel causal associations between geographic mobility and infectious disease spreading. The specific objectives are to demonstrate the applicability of transfer entropy to the analysis of different types of time series in complex dynamic systems, to identify causal relationships between mobility and incidence patterns, and to develop the foundations of a framework to inform future non-pharmaceutical interventions and strategies aimed at curtailing infectious diseases transmission. We applied a measure called transfer entropy, which is a measure that quantifies the directional flow of information between two time-dependent processes, thereby enabling the identification of possible causal connections. In this case, we calculated the transfer entropy between two different types of time series. One is the mobility-associated risk across time, which is shown in letter B, which is a proxy for how many infected people are traveling from a locality X to a locality Y. And on panel A, we show the COVID-19 incidence. And in C, we can see that we calculated the transfer entropy between the mobility-associated risk and the COVID-19 incidence in the destination locality. This is a way to see if the number of infected people traveling is informative about the future number of cases that will be happening in the destination locality. Since this is a directional measure, we can also measure the asymmetry between transfer entropy between a pair of localities, and this is called the directionality index. Since the epidemic process is dynamic, we calculated the transfer entropy considering a sliding window of size omega and an interval of delta days was considered as the delay between the time series. First, to validate our approach, we analyzed the dynamics of an epidemic process simulated using a susceptible, infected, recovered epidemiological model. In panel A, you can see the topology of the mobility network. In this simulation, we use the star-like topology with the epidemic process starting on node M2. On panel B, you can see the dynamics of the epidemic process with the different waves of infection. On panels C and D, you can see two ways that we calculated the transfer entropy. One, considering only the incidence in the different nodes, which is on D, and on C, we considered the mobility-associated risk and the incidence. We can see that when we consider the mobility, we are able to get rid of many indirect correlations. And this is validation of the methodology we propose. Then we proceeded to analyze data from the COVID-19 flow maps dataset for Spain. This dataset contains both mobility data and health data. In the plot below, we can see the number of new cases by 100K individual for the different Spanish provinces. And we can see the different waves of the pandemic. And in the plot above, by calculating the directionality index derived from the transfer entropy, we can see which provinces were acting as the main drivers and which ones were being driven at the different time intervals. In these plots, we can see Also for different time intervals, for example, for the first, second, and third waves of the pandemic, a map of the Spanish provinces showing which provinces were transferring entropy to which other ones. So, for example, we can observe differences like that in the second wave, Madrid was the main driver of infections in other provinces. And on panel E, we can see that many other provinces were responsible for driving the infections in Madrid. So our conclusions are that the transfer entropy-based approach proposed for epidemiological analysis was able to successfully recover spreading patterns of stimulated epidemic processes, identify which provinces acted as infection drivers at different temporal intervals during the COVID-19 pandemic in Spain, unravel significant epidemiological events, and discern the primary sources of COVID-19 infections for individual Spanish provinces. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the work of all the co-authors of this work, and that's all.